Live from the Legends Lounge, it's No Bull Football. From your friends at School of the Legends.
Live from the Legends Lounge at School of the Legends, I'm Jim Arnold, joined today by Brandon Williams and Willie Williams, the Williams brothers, if you will. That's what we're going to call them because that's the way it is when you're part of School of the Legends. But Willie is a former player from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Brandon Williams, former player from the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll talk about some of the topics coming out of this past weekend and Thanksgiving week. And then I want to get to you guys' games too. But first of all, I want to get you guys' feedback on, Thanksgiving went through. We saw the Lions stumble against Green Bay. Green Bay still staying undefeated, but I guess the biggest news out of that was Ndamukong Suh and the stuff that happened around here. We're probably looking at a 1 or 2 game suspension. I would probably guess 2 games now, based upon the penalties he's had in the past, the fines he's had in the past. And I think he was apologetic after the game, although it was kind of, so-so on that. And what looked to me like really trying to stomp the arm of the Green Bay lineman. But just if we could start out, I'm going to throw it to you, Willie. Here to get your impressions of that. Give me what you think about what's going on with Ndamukong Suh.
Well, he's a young guy. I mean, he's playing with a lot of energy right now. He's excited about playing in the NFL, but one thing you have to realize is that the NFL is not going to tolerate his actions. He's already been fined, and the video does not lie. I mean, it's clearly that he stopped the guy that was on the ground, but I think it's up to the coaches to get him under control, because if he continues to play like that, he's probably won't be in Detroit, and it's going to be hard for other teams to look at him as a player, because he just has to really control himself right now. He's a great player. I think he can really help a team out, but his actions, it's just not going. The NFL is not going to tolerate it.
I agree with you on that aspect of it, and again, like you say, the video doesn't lie. And I even heard that after the game, through some of my sources up in Detroit, that there were some players who really kind of came in, and in particular Kyle Vanden Bosch, who came in and who really made some comments to him, or really kind of got on to him about what's happened there. Brandon, your take on this?
Like you said about Vanden Bosch, I believe that. I mean, that's right there. That's 2 Nebraska guys. I'm from Nebraska, so I've seen Suh a lot of his career, and at Nebraska, he wasn't really. He always was physical and aggressive like that. And this whole time where he's got this reputation for being a dirty player, I kind of had his back. I mean, even last week, I made the comment, a clean D lineman's a jobless D lineman. But, I mean, that, like Willie said, that took it too far. Because, we're all out there. You're usually not friends with the other team, but we're all out there. We know that's our livelihood, and that's just taking it a little too far. I couldn't really back him up on that, and I knew there was at least going to be a 1-game suspension, and now I'm hearing, maybe 2 games, and I mean, it's kind of like with Haynesworth. It wasn't as bad because Haynesworth stepped on the dude's face, but it's kind of like that, and Haynesworth got suspended about 4 games for that. So, like Willie said, he's going to have to get under control, and it's going to be, I think it's really going to come down to the veterans in the locker room going to have to come in and finally say, all right, we appreciate the reputation you're trying to give us, but that you can really say that could have cost them that game. His impact not being in, you're not going to beat Aaron Rodgers unless you get to the quarterback, and you could say him not being there really cost them that game. And so he'll have to corral that.
And the fact that he may be out for the next 1 or 2 games, and these are games that. Now Detroit losing to Green Bay, they've got to get back on this winning. I mean, they won the week before, but they've got to get back on it in order to keep hold in the NFC North. There's also, I'd heard too as well, that the commissioner may come down with him having to do some kind of anger management as well. I want to say that if you do hear any noise in the back, we are in the Players Lounge here at School of the Legends. This is our Legends Relations Department. They're taking care of some of our former and current players, our player correspondents who are calling in. So if you hear stuff in the background, that's what's going on, as we are indeed live from the Legends Lounge. Moving along here, a couple of things going on. We'll get to the games here in just a minute, guys, but I want to get your take on a couple of other things. One of the other big things that came out of the weekend was in Buffalo is Stevie Johnson's kind of mock celebration after a touchdown that he scored of Plexico Burris shooting himself, which he drew a penalty on. And I also should say that there were a couple of, one touchdown pass toward the end of the game that he flat out dropped that could have meant the difference in the game. But kind of another young guy in the league, and just get you guys' reflections on what's going on there. Brandon?
Well, I saw it, and it really wasn't as good as they made it out to be, but it was. You could tell what it was. And, I mean, if you're going to make the noise, you got to make the play. So I'm sure like we said about Sue, I'm sure his teammates, some of them, and maybe the veteran receivers, I don't know if he's the veteran receiver on the team, but, I'm sure somebody will make mention of that, that because he had some drops last year too. So, I'm sure somebody will say something to that. I saw Plexico responded. Plexico was like, I've seen worse, heard worse. It don't really bother me. And, I mean, I
thought his response was very classy.
Right. I mean, I'm sure he saw it and noticed it, but Stevie Johnson, Plexico got the last word. His team got the W.
Willie, what do you think about that?
Just like Brandon said, if you're going to celebrate and make all these dances and all that stuff, you have to back it up. I think it was uncalled for. I'm from the old school, so the celebration is probably, in my opinion, I think it's getting out of hand. You got a lot of these young guys coming in thinking that they can do what they want to when they score touchdowns, but it's not called for. You got to have some kind of sportsmanship about yourself. Like Brandon said, I think the veteran players have to get together and talk to this guy and let him know that, hey, we're trying to accomplish something. And that's one thing. Everybody's goal is to get to the Super Bowl. You have a individual, it's just celebrating and this is all about me. It's all about me. It's not going to happen. So I think it's getting out of hand. I don't think it was called for it. I think Plaxico, like Brandon said, got the best end by getting the W.
Okay, well, I'm going to move into some of our games that we had. Let's start out. Willie, since you're here with us this week, Brandon was here last week. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Kansas City game. Pittsburgh ended up winning 13-9 in that game. Had some plays of note. Troy Polamalu, who was coming off of some concussion-like symptoms, got in the game and took a knee to the head, and then he was out. And I guess the big talk that's going on is that they finally removed him from the sideline, I guess, in the second half instead of letting him stay on the sideline. So if you can elaborate on that a little bit, Willie, and let us know kind of what's going on with your team.
Well, I think, Polamalu, he's a competitor. After he had received a concussion, you can clearly see that he wants to get back in the game because he's standing next to Coach LeBeau. And I think these players have to really be concerned about that situation when you get a concussion because it can affect your play and also do some damage to your brain. But anyway, I think the game overall was a good game. Kansas City, they came to play on defense. The defense, I didn't realize they had a good defense like they played last night, but they put pressure on Ben all night, had Ben running, scrambling around in the pocket, and the defense, Pittsburgh defense played well. But I believe that, from here on out, everybody is playing to get in the playoff run. So, I think it was a great ball game to watch. It was a defensive ball game, not many points scored. And I think they had Mike Wallace in check. They had a little squabble going on before the game, and it was escalated throughout the game the whole night. So I think both teams played hard.
As a DB, I expect that out of a receiver. But, I mean, you like you said, he's a big dude, and you at least got to put your hand up. I mean, that's a bad look. A DB will get chewed out for not putting your hand up. So as a receiver, when the ball's coming to you, and even bad route and everything, he still could have maybe possibly got a hand on the ball and, like you said, deflected it, and maybe instead of a walk-off interception, we get another down. But we'll never know. He didn't even attempt to go for it. And one of the announcers said, like they mentioned that he might have alligator armed it, been trying to cover up from the hit.
Mm-hmm.
And, either way, I don't know. Either way, that was a real bad look for them. And, one thing about the Chiefs, as bad as they've been, they usually show up on primetime games. It's home games. Because, I'm sure Willie can attest, the Chiefs in Kansas City is one of the best atmospheres in the NFL. It has like a college feel to it. And that's one of the few stadiums in the NFL that are like that. So they always come to play, and, they back up their Chiefs. And Dwayne Bowles, they're going to make him, either not forget it or he's going to have to redeem himself big the rest of this year. And he was becoming one of the better receivers in the AFC. So, that kind of surprised me that he was the one that made that play at the end of the game.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going around about him. Even Collinsworth, I believe, is who was on the game. He said he just basically laid down there.
Right.
But let's go on. Let's move into the Cleveland-Cincy game. The Bengals taking that home. Cedric Benson looked like he played real well. I'm gonna let you talk about that, Brandon, and let Willie weigh in just in a second.
Well, that was a big game. I mean, for one, because this part of the schedule, the beginning of the schedule, and it kind of worked out in our favor with how young our offense is. We kind of got we had some confidence builder games. And now, we start the division games where we play Pittsburgh twice, Baltimore twice. I think we got Houston in there. So this game was good scheduling to put this after, we played Baltimore and Pittsburgh back to back. But, we came out kind of ugly there at first. Benson, he's the workhorse. He's been the workhorse of the offense. And I've really been happy with how, he runs a lot different now than he did in Chicago. Especially, he had in that Super Bowl, he took a lot of flack for that Super Bowl and, fumbling and everything. But he's been carrying the offense, and he's part of the reason that Dalton and Green have had, the success they've had so far. But we needed this win, especially since we lost the last two. We needed this win. I would have liked to see it a little more convincing, but hey, a W's a W.
That's right. Willie, what are your reflections on that Cleveland-Cincy game?
I think Bengals played well. I think this is a real test for the Bengals. They have Pittsburgh coming up again, and they also have Baltimore. So I think if these guys, because actually Cincinnati, it was a real close ball game, the first game against Pittsburgh, 24-17, I believe. But I think they came out, they played this game the way they need to play and get this win, and they know they have a big test next week. And you just can't count these guys out. They have a young football team which is playing hard. A.J. Green is becoming one of the best receivers in the league, in my opinion. And the young quarterback that they have is not doing a bad job of leading that football team. So they just got to continue to play hard, and they just have to show up next week. Pittsburgh.
A couple more of the games I want to talk about. I'm going to take one local to us. Here was Tampa Bay here against the Titans, and the Titans end up winning that 23-7. And I guess the big stuff that comes around here, and we talked about this a little bit last week, Brandon, was Chris Johnson, who finally, it seems like, got on track. He had 23 carries for 190 yards. And I think part of that came as Coach Mike Munchak called out some of those offensive linemen for blocking in pregame, and it seemed to have an effect in the game. Now, fans have gotten restless here. Of course, he signed a huge contract last week. 12 carries for 13 yards, which is pretty lame in the NFL. And now, as you see him gaining, and I want your reflections on this too. And this is no bull football here, so we need it straight and honest here. Okay, no sugarcoating. I'm not going to. But the fans are restless. The guy's signed a big contract, and really does not look like the Chris Johnson of last year. Now, granted, we had a great game this week, but in retrospect to that, I think the flip side of the coin for the Nashville and Tennessee Titan fans is if we see Chris Johnson in the next few weeks break off that 60, 70-yard touchdown run where he runs away from everybody, I think there's going to be a lot of forgiveness by the fans, but yet we have not seen that. I've not even seen the burst of speed that we're used to seeing with him yet. So I want to get you guys' reflection. And again, remember, we're on no bull football here on School of Legends, so bring it.
Well, I think, I mean,
Hey,
like I said last week, I really just think he's behind. His physical body is behind. The whole league is behind, with the lockout, but he did a holdout. So that's even less working out that he was doing, as a team. I think he's just behind. I don't think his body is caught up to the rest of the league yet. So I really think, in the before the season ends, I think you'll see some of those long runs that you're used to seeing. I think he's starting to catch up with himself because, I mean, as a running back, you can't play to not get hurt or you can't play. So I just really think his body isn't where it needs to be. And that's, I mean, you look at, like I said, that's because, in my opinion, because of the lockout, and then he did that extra holdout. I really think that holdout just killed this year for him. I'm all for the players. But timing for that just wasn't smart to me, in my opinion, because everybody was already going to come in behind. The workouts were going to be different. You look at all the blown Achilles this year as opposed to years before. That's just, I wouldn't have done that. I'm not a $60 million running back, but I wouldn't have done that.
I think a lot of people look at that in a little similar than what you're doing. But Willie, one thing do you think that could be part of this is that during that holdout, do you really think that as a result of where he is and what we've seen this year, is that been because maybe I wasn't working as hard in the off season to prepare for the season? That thing kind of popped in my mind this week, and I was thinking, well, maybe during this time, I know I'm holding out. I'm not going in until I get a lot of money. So maybe I'm not working quite as hard as I normally would in previous years when I was a little hungry to prove that point.
I'm not sure. I'm not with Chris Johnson 24/7. I don't know what kind of workout he did, but I don't think that's it because you got a lot of these guys are professionals, and they realize that you have to come to camp shape. It doesn't matter how much you do in the off season, but you still need that preseason and training camp to get used to the pads, the helmet, and guys banging into you. So as a running back, you can't afford to miss training camp, like Brandon said. You got to be there so you can get used to the hits and stuff like that. And, you missed a whole training camp, and then you was holding out for contract issues. I think it has a lot to do with it, and the fans right now, they're getting impatient, but you have to realize you got to go through some kind of training camp and some kind of physical activity once training camp starts so you can last the whole season. I'm not sure how hard he worked. If I was in that position, I know I'd be working extra harder to earn that check once I sign a new contract. And Brandon can tell you got to go through some kind of contact before the season starts. So that's just my take on it.
It's like when Michael Jordan used to come back out of retirement, I always wondered what they meant when he would say, I don't have my legs yet. But now, as I got older and, started playing at higher levels, it made sense. Because, just simple stuff, like my speed in March wasn't the same as my speed in July or August. My vertical in February isn't the same as my vertical in September. And I finally started to understand that as I got older. And I think, like Willie said, I think that's just where he is right now. But as a fan, I know it's hard.
Well, and the fans are looking at it, and we want to give them some insight that they may not be knowing about too, as it relates to this. At the same time, you got to understand what they're looking at too, and right. you want to put something out there. So, that is where it is. We'll watch him and see how things go. The other game I wanted to talk about is with Jay Cutler going out last week. He's gone for the season. Chicago losing to Oakland 20-25 out there. Caleb Haney started the game and played the whole game for Chicago, and it just didn't look to me like the Chicago Bears had quite the confidence that they had the week before when Cutler's back there. I don't know what it is. It kind of started out good or okay for the Bears, and then kind of waned a little bit late. Oakland obviously playing very, very well and continuing to play well with Carson Palmer now as their quarterback, and it seems like he's improving every week. But I'll throw that back to Willie and let him comment on that game as well.
Well, I think, of course, Jay Cutler, he's the leader of that offense. I've always been a big fan of Chicago because they had an aggressive defense. Defense going to show up. But if you don't have that trigger man that you've been playing with all year and have that chemistry, it's going to be tough. And I think it's going to be tough for the young guy to come in to lead that offense because they're just so used to Jay Cutler back there being a leader. So I don't think it's over for those guys, but you got to give the Raiders credit. They have been playing well. And so I think that I don't know how long Jay Cutler's going to be out, but the leadership has to be there. And I think the new quarterback has to try to fill in their role and get the confidence from the offensive players. And, just got to work hard for this new quarterback because Jay Cutler's going to be out.
Well, and then the other game that I guess that's a little bit of a buzz and has been buzz all year is Denver beat San Diego 16-13. And where in the world is San Diego gone? It's kind of like where's Waldo, but Denver winning that. Tim Tebow starting, of course. This is his fourth win in 5 starts, or is it fourth win in 5 starts, I believe. So now this offense is starting to run what works for him, obviously, and playing good teams. San Diego's not a bad team. They just somehow have lost their identity, and now North Turner is sitting on the hot seat. But, with everybody kind of bashing Tebow the first part of the year, give us some of your reflections. Willie, I'll start with you.
Okay, yeah, Tebow, he's doing a great job. Of course, they had to adjust the offense that fit him. Once you get a new guy like Tebow, he's not that throwing quarterback, but I believe he can make good passes just to get things done. But if you come in and make to the offense, in San Diego Chargers, I just don't know what's going on with those guys. Rivers, I guess he just has to really sit down and meet with the veteran guys and just talk this week. Try to see what's going on, and hopefully they can come out and make another run. But right now, Denver's not playing bad at all with Tebow.
Brandon?
Yeah, he's getting those wins. And as weird as it is to see the option, and, Tebow's not even the best option quarterback to come out of college, probably, but it's just, as it's working. I still personally think it's just a phase, kind of like the Wildcat. All it is, it's just they just let a Wildcat quarterback come in and run the Wildcat. And I think, like I said before, I think once, there's only so many gaps on the football field. Once these defenses figure out how to fill the gaps, it's going to be, then we're going to see if Tebow can take those hits. Because, once a linebacker, or a safety, once they finally are able to, and a quarterback at that, once they're finally able to key in on you and get those free shots, I'm sure Willie's done it. They're going to bring it. If you get a free shot on the quarterback that's going to try and, stand up and fight for the extra yards, that's going to, those hits are going to start adding up. But I think it's just a phase. But right until the wheels fall off. It's working right now. Just, keep running with it. The team's bought into it. It seems like the offense, I would think, I think, it's costing some of the receivers a lot of money, but, it's the team's bought into it. The defense is playing good, and, it seems like the coach is behind it. I don't know how the front office feels, but he's the starter, so you got to stick with it.
Yeah, another thing, Jim, these great defensive coordinators out here in the league, they will adjust to this offense. They're going to designate somebody to hit the running back, and they're going to designate somebody to hit the quarterback. So that's how they're going to adjust to it. I think it's just a phase, like Brandon said. But hey, if it's working for now, they continue to roll with it. But yeah, trust me, this is not going to last too long. That's just my opinion.
Well, I think that's been the biggest knock about this with Tebow in Denver. I think the thing I took away from the game is his throwing in this game was, even though he's an unconventional thrower, his throws were on the money in this game. And that was caused in part by, some busted coverages because they were sold on the fake, but then there were some passes down the field that I thought he threw the ball pretty doggone well in that game. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes and how that works out for the rest of the year. And one more game before we get to, just scores and things I wanted to touch on was the New England-Philadelphia game. Here you have, the self-proclaimed dream team. I don't know if you guys heard this. We were talking about it earlier that the defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator or defensive line coach and offensive coordinator had to be separated. Jim Washburn and Marty Mortenwig in the game. Jim Washburn, I think, called Marty out on play calling, and they had to physically be separated on the sideline. So here's Philly, and of course now here's the twist to all of this is in Philadelphia, as you know how harsh they can be. The chance of Fire Andy has started to come out in the game. So just you guys' impression on where Philly is and where they're going. I think without Vic at quarterback, it's really hurt them, and I don't know that they really helped themselves this year or gelled as a team. Willie?
Well, yeah, I saw this game. The Philly, Vince Young, he came out on fire. But, you know, you just got to realize that this guy, Tom Brady, he's one of the best in the league. And one thing about this game is you can't come out and make mistakes against Tom Brady because he will find it. You got to be off for the incident that happened on the sideline. I didn't hear it until you said something about it, Jim. I think things now are starting to look a little bad now for the chemistry. Hopefully the locker room, the guys that's in the locker room are staying close-knit and not letting the outside interference come in and destroy what they have. But I think, you would have added a little bit more twist to the quarterback, and they just have to go with Vince Young. I think they just have to keep the chemistry going. You were right, Jim. The fans will be hard on you in Philly if you're not producing. And to say fire Andy Reid, it's just like the fans are getting impatient right now. You want a Super Bowl championship in that city, but they just got to find some kind of way to get things going back on the right track.
What about Brandon?
Yeah, they made their own bed, with the Dream Team statement, but that was bad. And then the worst part about that was it wasn't even a starter that said it. That was a backup guy. He probably didn't even mean it like that. But that's how it was taken. And, at the end of the day, it just comes down, you got to gel. You got to come together as a team. That's the reason the Giants beat the Patriots, the 18-0 season. They just played better as a team that game. You got to come together as a team. And right now, it's like the wheels are falling off. Deshaun Jackson's not having a good year. There's another one of the holdouts from this season, but he's not having a good year. Vic's hurt. Macklin's out, so it's a lot going on over there. Namdi's hurt now. So, you really can't put it all on Andy Reid. Andy Reid's kind of a coach where you know what you're going to get. He's giving us the same body of work year after year after year after year. So you kind of know what you're going to get with him. And I think it's just, the fans, they might want to be careful what they ask for. You might not get anybody that comes in that's as consistent. And I think Andy Reid, in the right, with the right timing, right group around him, I think he could win a Super Bowl. He came close. He came real close to winning a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But, it's just, we live in a what have you done for me lately world right now. So, that's where we at with it.
Well, and two, Philadelphia's a tough place. Like you said, if Andy Reid's gone, who's going to come in there? That's a tough place, I think, to come in and coach. This year, you make a lot of off-season acquisitions. You've got a lot of talent on that team that just doesn't seem like it's come together. And then you have, injuries to Vic. You've got Deshaun Jackson, like you said, not playing well. As a matter of fact, was benched in the fourth quarter. And Andy Reid finally said, if he's not playing well, I want to give somebody else a chance to do that. So you hate to see a guy who's, coming into a contract year having an off year playing from a player standpoint, because it doesn't make things well. And then you compound everything else that's been going on with Philly. Like you said, just haven't been playing together, haven't put up the wins really that you thought you would see from this team this year. So anyway, we'll kind of start to wrap this up. I'm going to go down real quick. Cisco lost to Baltimore in the Battle of the Brothers. Did that come out kind of how you guys saw it would, or did you think that Jim Harbaugh might have taken his brother down in that one?
I really thought I had a toss-up going into it. And that's just because the brothers really, at the end of the day, don't have nothing to do with it. They just happen to be the faces that the camera, the faces without the helmets. So it was a toss-up going in, to me. And this would have been one of my first chances to see San Francisco against a good team for a whole game. You know, I've seen their record. You know, I've heard all the reports, seen all the little rankings and power rankings. They're number 2 in the NFC, but I wanted to see for myself. And it was a good game, defensive game like I expected. You know, if anytime you play Baltimore or Pittsburgh, you got to bring we used to call that a double chin strap game. You got to bring your hard hat for those games. San Fran bought their hard hats. You know, they stuck around. They kept up with them. Even though Baltimore has some losses this year, I still think they're a team you got to respect. It's coming into the game, especially on a short week, and you come across country to their house. So, you know, San Fran had a tough task against them. They hung in there. But, you know, going into the game, I pretty much thought it was going to be a toss-up. I was just ready for a good game with my full plate on Thanksgiving Day.
And Willie?
I mean, I really did enjoy this game. I knew it was going to be a dogfight, but I was expecting more points to be scored by Baltimore, but that's not the case. But anyway, it's tough to play in Baltimore. It's tough to play in Baltimore, and plus, you know, I was expecting, you know, the West Coast to East Coast. That's a big time change. But hey, they came out ready to play. San Francisco defense is ranked first in every category that you can think about. So it's a game like Brandon said. But I'm still not sold on Flacco. Still not sold on that guy. But they put up enough points to beat San Francisco. But I think San Francisco has a great football team. They just got to get the offense going a little bit. You still have a young team. They're playing hard. Played against Jim. He's a great quarterback. I know how he is, and he's going to get his team ready to play every week.
Jim's very competitive too, so I think San Francisco, the 49ers are headed in a great direction. Well, just to recap a few more scores, Carolina beat Indy 27-19. Minnesota lost to Atlanta 24-14. Houston beat Jacksonville 20-13. Buffalo, who we talked about, lost to the Jets 24-28 in a very, very hard-fought game, in which we thought Buffalo might be able to come back and win that. And Arizona beats the Rams 23-20. And in closing here, I kind of want to throw something out and see what you guys think of. It's been talked about. Roger Goodell's come out and said that they're thinking and toying with the idea of moving the trade deadline later in the season. And I think, from my perspective, I think that can probably help teams who have a chance to go out instead of it being so early in the season. Most other teams in other sports have their trade deadline a little bit later in the season than what would be proportionally to what the NFL is. And just kind of get you guys reflections on that before we wrap up. Willie, why don't you start us out there?
Okay, yeah, the trade deadline, I think it's great. It's great for these teams that are not winning games. They can probably go out and look for some guys that they can really help their football team. You know, I think I don't know how long this trade gonna last. I mean, I just don't. You know, I just heard about it until you said something about it. I didn't realize they changed the date. But I think it's a great opportunity.
They haven't changed it yet. They're talking about changing it.
I can't hear you. Say it again, Jim.
I'm sorry. They have not changed the date yet, but there's talk about moving it later in the season than where it is now. Maybe 3 or 4 more weeks later in the season than where it is currently. Instead of being after the 3rd or 4th game of the season, it would be later, maybe the 9th, 10th, 12th week of the season.
Oh, okay. They think about changing to that time. Okay, that's not bad. I mean,
yeah.
Of course, that 9th or 10th week is going to determine who has good teams and who has bad teams. So it'll give the teams that are not playing so well a better opportunity to go out and get some great players.
Brandon, what do you think about moving the trade deadline?
I think it's going to be competitive. It's going to be good for that part of the game, the competition part, because it's going to give people get hurt every week. There's going to be players get hurt, and that just gives you a chance to fill your roster up, especially those teams making a playoff push. Fill your roster up, put you in the best position, and get to the postseason. So I think it's going to be real good for that part of the game. I like it. I like that move.
One of the things they were speculating on was that it would have made a difference in the Kyle Orton waiver, in that Kansas City was able to pick him up because they were first in line, but because it was the trade deadline was so much earlier, if it were later, that would have given Chicago, who really wanted to pick Kyle Orton back up, it would have given them a way to compete against it and be able to negotiate or at least challenge another contract offering by another team. So I think what you just said, Brandon and Willie, I think it'd make it a little more competitive. Certainly, it would. The player that's out there looking to get on that team would give them an opportunity, one, to get back in and get a as good, if not better, contract than maybe what they had before without a holdout. But the guy that wants to get back in and can help a team immediately, like Kyle Orton can. Anyway, I think we're going to wrap up our No Bull football here at School of the Legends. I want to thank Brandon Williams, formerly with the Cincinnati Bengals, and Willie Williams, former Pittsburgh Steeler, for joining me here live from the Players Lounge at School of the Legends. Tune in next week, and we'll bring you more No Bull football.